Hello, welcome everyone to episode 3 of the Backyard SportsCenter podcast. I am your host today, Natetastic 28. Today I am going solo with this podcast, going over the review of Week 8 in the rBBL and looking forward to Week 9, which is currently underway as I am recording this. If you are not totally aware of what the rBBL is, that is the league where we draft a team of 9 players comprised of the backyard kids, pros, and generics, and play against the other team's AI, and whoever has the best score differential between the two wins that week. Now, this league consists of 24 members split up into 2 leagues of 12 each, an American League and a National League that is furthermore split up into 3 divisions of 4 players in each league. The AL West has the Boston Royals of Visery, the New York Rangers of T-Boz, the Milwaukee Orioles of Mav, the Milwaukee Hornets of Devin/Slim, the San Diego Devil Rays, coached by Mellow Big Dog/Jibbo, the White Cubs of Emery, the Colorado Rockies of Martian Man, the Blue Bombers that are no longer coached by anyone, the Atlantic Braves coached by myself, the Cincinnati Reds coached by J.Y. Knight, the Blue Angels coached by Bobby Jones, and the Baltimore Pirates coached by Question Monkey. Those are the American League teams. The National League teams are comprised of the Green Monsters of Yura, the Minnesota Twins of Toast, the St. Louis Cardinals coached by Wizard, Oops, I Forgot Super Duper Melonheads, the Super Duper Diamondbacks of Pepsi Boy TTV, Crazy Eights Crazy Yankees, very well fitting, the Mighty Athletics of Arco Thunder, the Seattle Fishes of El Chris Blanco, the Mighty Wombats of Marco, the Blue Marlins of Shrewsbury, the Chicago Brewers of Silver Bullet, and last but not least, the Humongous Giants coached by Itanium. So, I am going to go into the results of what happened in Week 8. I am going off of the spreadsheet that we have all of our results off of from S9 that I will put in the video description once this gets posted live on YouTube for you to follow along with me. So, the first game that we had was the AL West division matchup between the Boston Royals and the Milwaukee Orioles. Visery took this one 21-9, continuing his offensive rampage throughout the American League, just destroying players, just destroying teams. Only has had one hiccup up to this point, just continuing to be an offensive nightmare for every coach to go against him. Now, 21 runs is kind of like his average throughout the season. He's had a couple games where he got close to or exceeded the max limit of 50, kind of a goal that everyone kind of wants to achieve at least one time in their rBBL career, or to the others, it's kind of a meme or a joke at this point to some people. But looking more in depth as to what happened in this matchup, if I look at the stats for this game, especially looking at Visery stats, looks like that Leo Wayne was the catalyst once again, hitting 3 home runs, 7 RBIs, also scoring 3 runs off of the home runs, getting about a third of the offense from Leo Wayne's home runs. Also, Tanya Lesko hit 2 home runs for 4 RBIs. Sophie Meyer also hit a home run, had 4 RBIs. Do not know if that was a grand slam or not. Joan May also hit a home run. Overall, Visitor hit 7 home runs on the day. Looks like that was the main catalyst for the runs that he scored in this particular week. Not surprising, given that he has 400 bats on his team. Sophie, Joan May, Tanya Lesko, and I think Leah Wayne all have 100 power. And the other thing that makes it really nice is that they have some speedsters on their team. You got Leah Wayne, who has a lot of speed. You got Paco, who has a lot of speed. You got Gwen Sears, which is the Alex Gonzalez clone. So you got some speed on this team, people to get on base, and then you got the 4 big boppers to drive them in with those doubles or home runs. 3 doubles on this game, 7 home runs. Got to look also to see if anything stood out from what Mav's team did in this Week 8 matchup. Mav had a couple home runs in this game, one by Mark McGuire and another by Jane Davis. It looks like that even though he scored 13 runs, only had a +9, so there was some runs given up in this game. Unfortunately for him, the 13 runs was not enough to defeat the great and powerful Royals team. That put the Orioles back at 500 going into their Week 9 matchup against the Bombers. Next game that we had was also another AL West division matchup between the Rangers and the Hornets. T-Boz takes this one 8-2. This was at Ekman Acres. Slim coaching the Hornets. Slim is notorious for hating Ekman Acres as their home field. Interesting that he decided to take over that team. Actually taken over at some point during the season both teams in the American League that had Ekman Acres as their home field, considering that is one of his least favorite fields to play on. And fitting as that is, only scoring a +2 in this one. You're not going to win that many games in this league, only scoring 2 runs, and this week was no exception. T-Boz's Rangers scored a +8, maybe a little bit less than what kind of their average is. They've been kind of averaging about 10 runs or so a game, which is pretty solid, but considering all the other teams in this league, the American League, that can put up some runs, even scoring 10 runs is not going to guarantee you a win. But when your opponent scores 2, 8 is definitely plenty to win off of at this one. Looks like that T-Boz hit 3 home runs himself. Don Cozart hit one. Dominic Lowe hit one. That's actually kind of impressive. And given that Dominic Lowe does not have the power of the other 2 players that he hit home runs of, Marcellus Marks. And actually, wait, Don Cozart does not have power either. I was thinking 03 for a second, and this is 01. Don Cozart is the Lofton clone. I was for some reason thinking that it was Jim Thome and had more power, but perhaps it got and maybe an inside the park home run with Cozart. That is a possibility for sure. Looks like that T-Boz gave up 1 run against himself, so the 9 runs allowed turned into +8. It looks like that Grace Tipton, which sometimes I like to make fun of T-Boz a little bit for always drafting, but can't argue with the production that Grace Tipton provided him this week, going 4 for 4 with 3 singles and a double and scoring 2 runs. So that would be the MVP, I would say, as far as T-Boss's Rangers go. Next game that we had was my game, which was the Braves versus the Devil Rays, coached by Jibbo. Braves won 15-1. That game, I was pretty nervous going into, given that it was at dirt yards and the Devil Rays had a pretty good offense, in my opinion. So I was expecting them to kind of exploit my defense, and I was thinking that they were going to put up a bunch of runs. Luckily, I was able to put up 15 or a plus 15. I scored 16, had one that I gave up a run. I don't remember what inning I gave up that run in. This was another Rachel Ablana game. 3 home runs, 7 RBIs, 4 runs total. I believe it was 3 home runs and a double. Just another amazing performance by Rachel Ablana. One of my favorite players, our all-star this season. So usually if I do well, Rachel has a good game. If Rachel doesn't have a good game, then I probably didn't have that good of a game. That's kind of what it boils down to with this one. I did get kind of lucky that Jibbo only put up 1 run, but sometimes that's just how it goes. Sometimes you get lucky. Sometimes you win games that you shouldn't and lose games that you should win. It's just kind of how the other team does against you and how much you put up against them. So that's kind of how that goes. And so that's all I got to say for my game. Nothing too spectacular other than Rachel Ablana, again, just putting up massive numbers for me. Next game that we got was actually a tiebreaker game, a home multiplier tiebreaker game between the Rockies and the Reds of JY. JY just squeaking past the Rockies, +9 to 9 minus, or 9 plus to 9 minus. Typically, because of the multiplier, the Reds are winning by just the fraction of a run. This was according to the Rockies coach, this was their greatest game of their lives, but it was not enough to upset the Reds. The Rockies gave up a little bit too many runs to the AI. Looking to see how many runs that they actually gave up. They gave up 5 runs. They scored 12, gave up 5. That's kind of interesting that it says 12 runs and they gave up 5. And I don't know how they got a +9 considering they were not at home. Some of the stats must be off here because that does not add up. I don't know how that got in there, but oh well. Let's gotta also look at what the Reds did. Reds have a really good team. JY drafted a solid team comprised of speedsters, defensive specialists, and massive power hitters, which is kind of the prototypical team for this build that we have, or the B file that was put together by Visory for this season. Mandy Coolidge hit a home run, as did Samuel Middleton and Zena Frome. The 3 of them kind of all had 1 home run and 2 RBIs. This also is kind of weird because it only says that it has 6 RBIs, which would have, and 6 runs, which would have made it a +7. So I don't know why those stats are not adding up either on both sides. That's something that I'll have to talk with our statistician, Crazy Eights, about later, because that makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. 2 more games in the American League, which was the Pirates and the Cubs. Another close one. The Cubs just barely sneaking out of this one for win, just avoiding the upset 14-12. Cubs of Emory are reigning champion, once again having an amazing season, looking to make the playoffs and is a strong threat to repeat once again as champion, and this week was no exception, scoring 14 runs, or plus 14 to plus 12 of the Pirates at their home field of Cement Gardens. 13 runs, gave up 1 run. That's where you get the plus 14 from. This kind of makes some sense. Looks like Veronica Lee led the team with 4 RBIs in this game. 3 home runs with Veronica Lee, Pamela Kirkos, and Sheila Basanti. That's a shock. Must have got one down the left field line down the alleyway. A pretty even distribution of scoring and RBIs. Not really one player that stands out or stood out this game. It just was a collective effort, team effort that made it over the Pirates of Question Monkey. Like to see Dominic Hoskins with a double and 2 RBIs. Wonder if that was from a power up or not. That's another thing that I did not mention. That's a unique rule set of this season, is that the player that we drafted in the 9th round is the only person on the team that can use a power up. So that was also a consideration when drafting which player do you think might be, useful to have these power ups. Maybe you wanted a little bit more speed. Maybe you want a little bit more power so that you could get those, screaming line drives or whatever, maybe a little bit farther. Or maybe you wanted some speed so that you could get doubles and triples with your crazy bunts or whatever. So depends on what each coach prefers and what each coach needed with their round 9 draftee. Looking at what Question Monkey did for this week, looks like that they had 3 home runs this week. Pablo Sanchez, MVP and the GOAT by many people's opinions, had 2 home runs for 4 RBIs and also scored 4 runs. That has to be my MVP of the game for them as well. So Pablo had a great game. Kay O'Toole also hit a home run. Pablo hitting 2 home runs at that stadium. Anytime it's sometimes a little bit hard to hit home runs at the cement fields just because there's not as clear boundaries as far as what's going to be a home run and what's not going to be a home run, and the power is a little bit harder to hit too, so you got to hit it farther and in specific locations in order for it to recognize it that it is a home run. So Pablo having 2 home runs is a good feat in this game. Just need a little bit more support from the rest of his team members. Ray Tran did not do anything. If only Big Play Ray would have showed up, this would have been an upset. But sadly, Big Play Ray did not show up, and that determined that this game was going to be a loss for the Pirates. Maybe next time Big Play Ray will show up and the Pirates will get in the win column. And the last game of the week for the American League was the Angels against the Bombers. Angels win 2-0. Not going to really say much about this one. This was not a highlight of the season for the Blue Angels, but it was a week that they could afford to have their worst game of the season because it still resulted in them winning. So not the result the Angels want, but they'll be looking forward to improve in their next game in week 9. Moving on to the National League, this was the game of the week, or the match of the week, that was shown on the Twitch channel. Uria's Monsters against the Cardinals of Wizard. Wizard was not able to crack the Monsters defense. That's been a puzzle for all the National League players this season. no one's been able to crack the Monsters' defense. Monsters are undefeated right now at 8-0. I think the Melonheads have scored the most runs against this team at 10, and that still was not enough for that one. Monsters' defense is just too good, it looks like, and this match of the week was no exception. I know Sammy Sosa hit a home run. The Cardinals' defense didn't really do them any favors once Jerry Winchell went to first base. That was kind of the big key of that game. Once Jerry got off of the pitching mound and Delgado went to the mound, putting Jerry at first, Jerry was really slow and tired, and there was a lot of easy hits that because Jerry was too slow when leaving the base. So it got kind of crazy a little bit at the end. Thought the Monsters might put up a few more runs considering that the defense at that point was a liability, but with the Cardinals only putting up 2 runs against the Monsters' amazing defense, 9 runs was adequate enough to win this game, and the Monsters continued to be undefeated on the season. Next game was the Twins and the Melonheads. The Melonheads did not have their best game this time. The Twins didn't really either, but the Twins just had a slightly worse game than slightly, better game than the Melonheads did, winning that 9-5. Both of those were division games as well. If you look at the Melonheads in week 8, their key contributor in this game was Lindsey Felgate with 2 home runs and 4 RBIs. And the main contributor for the Twins was actually a pretty even across the board. 5 home runs contributing to their 10 runs. Individual home run shots by Robert Young, Zena Estrada, Stan Olsen, Sonia Hagen, and Nikki Winston contributing to the W for the Twins in this matchup. The next game was Marco's Wombats taking the W and pulling the upset over Crazy Eights. Yankees 4-2. Marco gets the win. What a surprise, everyone. The Wombats are alive, and the Wombats are winning, and they have their claws out, or whatever the sound that they make. Some people have mentioned stuff in the Discord channel, and now it's been kind of a funny joke about that. So that's been always interesting and funny to see all the jokes about it and everything. It's really entertaining to see. The Wombats hit 2 doubles and 2 home runs. Greg Vaughn and Keisha Phillips. Greg Vaughn was the player of the game, had 1 home run and 3 RBIs. And for Crazy Eights, the only player that really did anything for him was Courtney Valentino, that had a double, a single, and 2 RBIs. Marky Du Bois also had an RBI, but only scoring 3 runs. Courtney Valentino gets the play of the game from my opinion in looking at the stats here. Next game was one of the high-scoring games, considering the National League has not been putting up as many runs as the teams in the American League. The Diamondbacks of Pepsi Boy putting up 16 runs to 13 runs by the Marlins of Shrewsbury. The youngest member of the league this season continues to be one of the best. Don't know what everyone thought going into it, but Pepsi has been proving everyone wrong and shocking the world, continuing to lead the division. 6-2 record so far, putting up lots of runs, hitting lots of home runs with Ahmed and Henry. Continue to score lots of runs as one of the top scoring offenses, if not the highest scoring offense in the National League. and this game was no exception, scoring a plus 16, scored 20-something runs, but had a little bit of trouble with the pitching in this game. But when you score more runs, you can afford to give up a couple here and there, typically. Marlins scored a plus 13. Henry Deschaines had 1 home run and 6 RBIs. Amir Khan hit 2 home runs for 4 RBIs. Ahmed hit a home run. Jeff Conine hit 2 home runs. 9 home runs in total from 7 players. The only people that did not hit home runs for the Diamondbacks were the Speedsters star Moonbeam and Adam Van Doren. So pretty typical game from what Pepsi's been doing, getting lots of home runs and putting up lots of runs. Now the Marlins, on the other hand, this was a Peggy Heffernan game. 2 home runs, 9 RBIs, 3 for 3, single as well added in there for good measure, and a walk. Peggy Heffernan, if you don't know, is the clone of, or the 03 equivalent of Rachel Ablana. So I love to see it when Peggy and Rachel have good games, even if they're not currently on my team. And this week was one of my favorites because both Rachel and Peggy had a massive offensive output. Both, since they're near and dear to my heart, love to see it. Makes me happy when those players have good games and hit lots of home runs. So even though Marlins lost, Peggy had a good game. That's all that matters. Shrewsbury just trying to get warmed up for the consolation tournament, where he's probably going to score 50 against everyone that doesn't make the playoffs and just make us all look like an idiot, like he always does every season. Next game was the Giants and the Fishes. Defensive battle here, as many of the games in the National League have been. Giants scored plus 6, mostly in part to Pepsi Boy showing up to the stream of Itanium. If Pepsi Boy didn't show up, I don't think they would have won because they didn't start hitting home runs and scoring. I think Nomar hit like a 3-run home run, or Kendall hit a home run, but it only happened after Pepsi Boy showed up. So, Chris, you can blame Pepsi Boy if he wants you for losing this game, because Pepsi Boy is the reason why Itanium won this game. It had nothing to do with Itanium's ability to play or speed runs or anything. It only had to deal with Pepsi Boy showing up to the stream. That's the only thing that mattered. The last game this week, another defensive battle. Surprising considering this was played at Tin Can Alley. Both teams were a little struggling this week. Athletics scored plus 4, sneaking the win over Silver Bullets Brewers 4-2. And that concludes the week of week 8. So I'm going to go back to the American League and go over what the current standings are up to this point. The AL West, the Boston Royals are winning this at 7-1. The New York Rangers are in second with a 5-3 record. The Baltimore Orioles have a 500 record at 4-4, and the Milwaukee Hornets have a 2-6 record. The AL Central had the White Cubs and the San Diego Devil Rays tied at 6-2. The Colorado Rockies are 3-5, and the Blue Bombers are winless this season at 0-8. The AL East, the Atlanta Braves are winning it with a record of 5-3. The Cincinnati Reds of J.Y. Knight are hot on their tails with a 4-4 record, and close behind them are the Blue Angels and the Baltimore Pirates at 3-5. The AL Central, really close between the Cubs and the Devil Rays. The AL East, all 4 teams still have a shot at winning the division, so it's going to be really interesting to see what's going to happen moving forward with that one. And the wild card as well, considering that the Royals have decided to decline their playoff in the invitation once, or they probably already have realistically clinched it considering their record, but you never really know what could happen. But the wild card is definitely going to be something to look into, especially considering now that we have 2 wild card teams. So definitely a lot of exciting games to look forward to and a lot of exciting matchups, including match of the weeks. And hopefully, we'll see a lot of close games and possibly, some things that we weren't expecting. The National League West standings as it is right now, the Monsters moved to 8-0. The Twins moved to 5-3. The Cardinals fall to 4-4. The Super Duper Melonheads record of 3-5. Diamondbacks lead the NL Central at 6-2. The Yankees and the Athletics are tied 4-4 record. The Fishes are in last place in the NL Central with a 3-5 record. So sad day for all of Team Fish. And the NL East, the Giants moved to 5-3, still holding on to division lead over the Brewers, the Marlins, and the Mighty Wombats, all tied at 2-6. 3-game lead for the Giants. They're looking really strong in this division. The NL Central, thanks to the upset over the Yankees by the Wombats. The Diamondbacks, the Pepsi Boy, looks like they're going to take a stranglehold over the division. Have a 2-game lead right now. And the Monsters, with a win over the Cardinals, look like they're going to just run away with this division. I don't think anyone's going to be able to catch them. Twins are 5-3, but it would take almost a miracle at this point for the Monsters to lose this division. Even though the division races are not that close at this point, the wild cards look to be really entertaining. Could see, 5 or 6 different teams possibly taking that spot. So a lot of good competition in games to see, who is going to take that final wild card spot. Okay, so now that we've gone through the review of the games that have just taken place in Week 8, go ahead and preview Week 9. It's going to start with the National League for the preview. And first game on the list is the Brewers at the Giants. This game will be taking place at one of the cement fields. I forget if it's Paveway or Cement Gardens. They're pretty similar, and I'm not in the National League, so you can give me a break on this one. Given the Brewers' kind of sporadic offense and inconsistency, I do think that the Giants are going to win this game. The Giants are built for their home field, and I think that the Giants are going to be able to take this one. Think that, as long as Perry Marks can pitch somewhat remotely close to how the GOAT Ivan King does, think the Giants will have a good chance of winning this game. Think the Giants are going to take this game 12-7 is my prediction. Next game, we got the Wombats and the Marlins. I believe this game is already in. The Marlins won this game, I believe. Looking up the results. And yes, this game just got in, with the Marlins taking this one +12 to +9. Actually, no, it's not +12. It would be +14 to +9. Both teams had a good offensive output, but Marlins just scored a little bit more runs. Hopefully, Peggy Heffernan hits some more home runs. That's always a good thing. Never go wrong. Never have a bad day when Peggy hits home runs. So that was the result. The Melonheads and the Fishes is the next game on the list. The Melonheads have already played, and the Fishes have yet to play. Going into this game, I think that it's going to be extremely low scoring. Both teams have not been that efficient at scoring runs consistently, and part of that could be because of how this league has been built with drafting more defensive focused teams. Chris typically likes to have a good defense anyway, so that kind of fits the build to begin with. I do think the Fishes take this one. I'm not going to give a score prediction because I did already see the Melonheads play their game, and I don't want to, if this gets put in before the Fishes result has come in, I don't want to, say too much stuff according to that. But I do think the Fishes will win this game. I think both teams score less than 10 runs. The Athletics and the Monsters. There's been some trash talk between the two teams going into this. I think this one, depending on how it goes, really depends on how many runs the Athletics can score and how many home runs that possibly Babe Ruth could hit or Pizza Man can hit, because that's the real key to defeating the Monsters' defense is hitting home runs. But I don't think there's going to be as many home runs hit given the field. I think that the Monsters probably take this one. I think this is probably going to be low scoring as well. I think the Monsters put up 11 runs. So I'm going to say Monsters plus 11 to Athletics plus 7. Twins at the Diamondbacks at Scrappo. I think this could be an offensive outburst for both teams. I think this is going to be extremely high scoring. I don't think that both teams there are more offensive focused than defensive focused. So this could be a game where both teams put up 20 plus runs. I would not be surprised to see that. I think the Diamondbacks take this one strictly because they've been more consistent with their offensive output, and the Twins have been a little bit more sporadic, had some really good games and some bad games. So I think the Diamondbacks take this one 18-13 is my prediction. And the last game on the list for the National League is the Yankees and the Cardinals. Given what we just saw from last week, I do think that the Yankees are going to be somewhat able to exploit the Jerry Winchell moving to first base as long as the Yankees can get Jerry off the mound, which I think that Crazy does not typically have two bad games in back-to-back weeks. So I do think that the Yankees come back and score a bunch more runs. Now, will that result in a win or not? That is yet to be seen. I think that the Yankees are going to go on the road and take this one. I know this is at the Casa. Both coaches don't really like it that much, but I do think that I trust the Yankees' abilities to hit some more home runs over the Cardinals, considering that their main run scorer is Sosa and the rest of their team doesn't have that consistent power bat as much as the Yankees do. Even though the Yankees do not have as much power as a Crazy coach would historically have, I do think that the Yankees are going to be able to win this one. I think the Yankees win 14-8 is my final score on that one. Moving on to the National League, I believe this is the match of the week for Week 9, the Angels and the Pirates. This should be a really good game. Couple division rivals, couple teams that are just looking to improve on their season, and some of them have, they put some good practice in. They've had some really good offensive scores at certain points throughout the season. And I think that also because given this game is going to be at Playground Commons, this game could see some high scores as well. I am going to predict the Angels to win this game. I think the Angels have, even though they had only won last week by +2, I think the Angels have had some better games overall than the Pirates have. And also, I think that having the the 6th inning is going to make a difference. That extra chance to put up some runs is going to outdo the multiplier. But I do think it's going to be really close. I think we're going to see like a plus 18 by the Angels to like a plus 15 for the Pirates. Angels take this one just by a smidge. Next game is Braves versus Reds. Another critical division matchup. This one determines who takes the lead in the division through 9 weeks. This one's going to be a little bit harder for me to not be biased on it, but I'm going to, given my track record at steal and being able to hit home runs at steal and put up decent scores, I am going to predict myself to win this game. As long as I kind of had the game that I can have and don't put up an egg, I should be able to put up some runs and hit some home runs at steal, especially with Cheryl and Rachel. Specifically, maybe Mo can hit a couple as well. So I think that this one it's still going to be close, but I think that I'm just going to be able to hit a couple more home runs and sneak ahead of the Reds and steal a win at Steel Stadium. As far as the score, I am going to say that this is going to be plus 17 for the Braves to plus 13 for the Reds. Possibly plus 14 for the Reds. Tough game. Definitely could see JY taking this one. Kind of a coin flip, but I trust my ability at steal more than I do anything else. Next game is the Hornets and the Cubs. Not really much to say here. This is actually a matchup of 2 former champions, but I think that Emery is going to take this one. I think Emery is going to exploit the Hornets defense and put up like 25 runs or something ridiculous. And the Hornets are not going to be able to put up that many runs. It's a little bit better than it is at Ekman. So I'm going to say the Hornets, they're going to put up, it's going to be like 8-25 is my final score for that one. Orioles have already played the Bombers plus 13. Orioles get that win and move to 5-4. Rangers and Rockies. The Rockies have been playing better, and this is at their home field. Given that it is a home game for the Rockies, I think I'm going to predict the Rockies to take this one. I think it's going to be still a little bit lower scoring. So I'm going to say that the Rockies win this one 9-6. And the last game that was for week 9 is already in. The Devil Rays and the Royals. The Royals having one of their worst games of the season, but it still is enough to win against the Devil Rays and Jibbo 8-7. Royals move to 8-1. Devil Rays losing their grip on first place, having a 6-3 record now, falling out of the division lead. Will they be able to recover and regroup and be able to make a charge back into the division, or will their team morale just be destroyed from the reigning champ breathing down their neck and taking over the lead? Guess we'll be able to have to find that out later in the season. But that is my predictions for week 9. Now, just going to leave you a little bit of something kind of different and unusual since I'm doing this by myself. And possibly, get your feedback and what your opinions are in both the Discord and the YouTube. I've had a couple players that are chasing historic seasons in Aaron Judge and the last 03 player of Albert Pujols hitting 700 home runs. What do you guys think of Albert's season so far? I think it's been amazing. I personally am not a fan of the Cardinals, but especially with playing 2003 and 2005 backyard baseball, I was a huge Albert Pujols fan growing up, and just to see him be able to put up, these like 20 home runs this season that no one was expecting him to do, And to get to 700 has just been amazing to watch, even though it's with the Cardinals, and I don't like the Cardinals. But which one do you think is more impressive? Do you think that what Aaron Judge has been doing, or given that Albert hitting 700 home runs in his career, what do you guys think about both of these great seasons? And I think it's been really amazing to watch all these players put up historic numbers. Just been a really fun to watch in real baseball. So if you guys have any topics that you want brought up in real, or I don't want to say real, but the professional sports leagues, put them in the comments section or put them in the Discord, and we'll try to bring them up at future episodes. So with that, that's all I got today, and we'll see you in the next episode.